I guess there's not going to be much more people coming. Session for today is going to be textures, all around textures. What can we do with it? And my favorite tricks, things I like to do with textures. So I'm going to just go through the different texture components or operators nodes, see what they do. Maybe not all of them, but like the most common ones, let's say. Okay, so you can still not see my screen if the create dialog doesn't appear. You're not seeing it? No. Ah, damn. Okay. Well, I'm just gonna add them piece by piece and talk about them then, I guess. Just like 5-10 minutes. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna start with Blur. So Blur, I guess you all know what it does. Maybe an example is always better. That should be an easy one. Remember how we put images in? So a movie file in. You select. We have a banana here. Okay, we add some blur. Okay, blurry, easy, very useful. One of my favorite tools also. I guess it's self-explanatory, so I'm not gonna stay too long on this one. Okay, next, what do we have? Well, we have circle. This is it's not really a texture per se or a texture effect per se, but it's a way to create a texture that contains a circle. So it's not a 3D object, but it's really like it's a texture. Yeah. What else? Composite. Composites, really important. This is what I explained last time. It's the same as Photoshop layers. I'm just gonna add like a circle with the banana. See what we can do. So yeah, we have a scaling problem because the texture of the banana is not the same as the circle. So if you ever see this kind of stuff happening, well, you need to resize basically either the circle texture or the banana texture. If you resize the circle texture, it's gonna be. Hang on, I just had phone. There you go. So I was saying, yeah, if you see that, you have to basically resize one image. So if you resize the circle to anything else that is not a square ratio, so 1 by 1, you're gonna have, well, it's gonna be a rectangle basically. So I'm just gonna resize the banana, let's say. So if you want to resize, you go inside common. So this common tab is basically, well, you can find it everywhere around Touch Designer in every texture operator. So output resolution is well, I guess it's something about 16 by 9, so a ratio. So if you want a square, well, you can do custom resolution, and then you will have a square. But obviously, it scales the image, so you need to do another operation before. So back to the beginning. We could just use a crop basically. So crop, you just take out parts of the image and just crop it, so we have a square format. So this is so if you want to check for information, you right click on the operator and you go to info, and we can see that is 1280 by 720. So if you want to create a square out of that, we probably really want to have like a 720 by 720 image. So basically what you need to do is crop right and crop left. So in this case, I use the crop operator, and you see crop left, crop right, crop bottom, crop top, and you see F. So F is a fraction. It's a fraction of the whole image. So if you say fraction 0.5 is gonna crop your image by half, let's say. But you can also use pixels, which is easier in this case. So I'm just going to do it by hand because it's going to be a bit easier. So we have 1280 here. Yeah. And we want to crop right and left. So we have this and this. So to go to 720, you need to, oh, math. I love math. You need to remove 720 from 1280 and divide by 2. So that makes, I'm really bad with this kind of stuff. And minus 720 divided by 280. So we have this, and then we remove 280 from 1280, which makes 1000. And here we go. We have an image that has the same ratio as the circle, and now you can see it's perfect. It's not distorted, and we have multiply on it. So if you change the modes, where you can add, so it's gonna add the top layer on top of the other one. Average, I mean, exclude, hard light, subtractive. I cannot really tell what everything does. You need to test it. Best way in Touch Designer is just basically really testing everything out that you can. Break the software. Huh?
I have a question
Sure.
here. The top layer is the circle. Can we change it? Why the circle is the top layer? Why not the bananas?
Sure. So you can see here you have crop and circle, and you have crop on top, and you have circle on below. So if you click on the small arrow here, it inverses the thing.
Oh, thank you.
Another trick is to take the texture. So you select this. You have this cable coming out, and you simply go put this on the yellow, and it's gonna no, hang on, that's what I wanted to do. So you take this thing, and you put it up. No, why doesn't it? It should invert. Well. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't work for now, but I mean, use the technique with the arrow. That's going to be the easiest. And that's the same thing for all of the most of the nodes. They have this way of changing the yeah, how they are organized. Okay. So yeah, play with the operation, the composite modes. You can find lots of fun stuff. It's the best way to discover Touch Designer. Touch Designer, break as much as you can, and that's how you learn basically. Okay, next operator. I'm gonna do a bit faster because this might take a bit too much time. So constant basically is just a color. So constant, you change the color, red, blue, whatever. The size is always going to be 256 by 256. So if you want a higher resolution, you just need to scale that. So if you want to 1080 by 1080, you just put it here, and it's now a 1080 image. What else? Displays, yeah, really cool. I'm just
how would you?
Yep.
I have a question. How would you like change if you would like that constant color to change over time, or the hue? How would you do that?
So constant color, you can see you have, if you click on constant and on color, you have those numbers. Remember what I told you last session? You can basically have parameters linked to each other. So if you want to have this changing by time, you basically need to find a way to make each component of the color vary by time with an operator. So in this case, we can use something. You can use a chop, so a signal by time, and we could use something like timeline. So timeline. Remember what it is? It's a chop that is tied to the timeline that is running below here. And so if you want this to vary in time, you need to you need to put this range 0 from 600 to 0 to 1, because the colors go from 0 to 1. So you use a math, and then you change the range. So we go from 0 to 600. We change that in the range. So you select from range 0 to 600 to range 0 to 1. So you can see now we have from 0 to 600 here, and now we have 0 to 1. And then you add a null, always add a null. Call it properly. So now I'm going to call it null timeline. So always remember what it is. And then you need to link both of them. So how we do that? So you click on the small plus. You drag and drop frame onto the color, chop reference, and you can see it's changing by time. And obviously you can do that for red, green, blue. Yeah. So if I do the same changing color by time for all of 3, is going to be gray, because obviously red, green, blue changing at the same time is going to be just gray. Yeah. And if you want something that is more of a loop, but not like going from 0 to 1, well, I would use something like a pattern. So pattern is basically a wave pattern. So you have various wave types. So you have constant, which is just like this, just a line. You have sine, so from 0 to 1 to -1 to 0. Cosine, triangle, etc., etc. So if you want to do this this kind of loop, well, you remove the timeline one, and also one important thing, you need to rename the channel to the name we used for connecting the null timeline and the constant one. So in this case, the channel was called timeline, so we're just going to call it timeline. I think it was that, yeah. Yep. And no, it was frame. And does it change? Nope, it doesn't. I get confused because there's 2 operators that are the same. So there's pattern and wave.
Yeah, I was just about to ask that about the wave, because it's really similar.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the difference is between those 2. Yeah, I don't know actually. It does the same. So yeah, I'm just gonna use a pattern. So go back to this, and well, it doesn't. Sometimes it animates, sometimes it doesn't. This is a mystery I still haven't completely understood. But you can still animate the pattern. So you would use the timeline we used before. Timeline. Where's the timeline? And then you connect the frame parameter. You connect it to the phase. So phase is just going, yeah, it's just changing the phase of the wave. So it's moving in time basically. There's millions of ways to do this, but this is like an easy way. So activate timeline. So click the small plus here, drag and drop onto phase. I need to be between 0 and 1. So again, we need to change the range of this between 600 and 0 and 1. So same as I did before, 0 to 600 and 0 to 1. And then we could change the phase. The phase should be working. And I remove the math. And it doesn't work. Well, show that. I'm so used to doing these things that explaining them is a bit, yeah, can be a bit more.
Maybe it's just changing very slowly.
No, actually, it should be. Oh, but it's negative. So, okay, I'm just gonna put higher amplitude. That's very weird. Yeah.
So it should go to positive, not negative, right?
Yeah, exactly. It should go from yeah, exactly. Because well, I have 2 amplitude, but I need an offset of 1, so I can put the amplitude of 1, and it goes from 0 to 1, so amplitude of 0.5.
Maybe we can add some offset by plus 1 to the number.
Exactly. This is what I did. So I basically changed. Yeah, I changed the amplitude, added an offset, and now you can see it's basically going from what I should be doing. Yeah, exactly. You can see it's variating, but it's not super smooth though, because well, you get the principle basically.
Yeah, I forgot about the timeline. Thanks.
Yeah, timeline and pattern and math. This is basically like the. Maybe I will just keep all of those things and send a patch to you later. Okay. I was saying the displace operator. Yeah, one of my favorite operators. So basically, the displace operator allows to displace an image with another image. What does displacement mean? Well, it means that you change the position of the pixel in the image 1 by the pixels of the image of the second image. I can show you exactly. So if you take something like, well, we could take the banana again, because the banana is the best. All right, so we plug that into our displace. So this is going to be the image that is going to be displaced or moved by the second image. And now we're going to use one of my favorite operators in the texture, noise. This is like the God mode when you use noise. I use it almost everywhere. And you can see that the banana is displaced by the noise. So basically, all of the pixels that constitute the banana are displaced by the grayscale values of this node. So if you change any parameters here, so if you change the period, you can like zoom in or zoom out. If you change the harmonics, it's going to get more complicated. Yeah, I mean, this is all something I'm going to come after. Yeah. So you might not see a lot of use in this, but it's a really, really powerful operator. And once you start playing with it, especially like in feedback systems, you can get to fluid simulation, similar analog techniques. So yeah, it's a really, really cool operator. Next.
I want to ask something. So if we change the seed by the time, it will like animate like waving, right? Like
no, because the seed is just a way of generating a different noise. So the seed, you see, is just like, yeah, it's a different noise. If you want to animate that by in time, you use a transform basically. So if you, and now we put everything in active. Why? Anyway, okay. So if you want to animate a noise, well, you could use this timeline and use a node. Call it timeline. I think we already had, so it's going to be timeline 1, but it's just to show you. So you take the drag and drop, and you go to either translate, and you see here it's a bit fast, so we need to scale that. So from 0 to 600 to 0 to 1. And now you can see it's animating really nice.
Great. I was asking just this.
That's one way of animating it. And depending on the noise you have like 3D noise, which is XYZ, and you have 4D noise, which is basically an additional axis, which is time. So you can basically use this to animate it, which is also nice. And if you check on, I think on Patreon, there's like Paqueta12 who does nice tutorials. We should definitely check it out. I can give you a couple links also where you can do like tutorials and things to further learning. And he has a technique to like make a looping noise basically. So you can do like looping video with noise, which is awesome. I'm just gonna save this. Okay. Okay. Next operator, top operator, feedback one. I touched a bit upon like last time. So feedback is a technique to feed a frame upon the other one and make things move nicely. So I'm just gonna do a quick quick feedback network. So I'm gonna use a noise, plug that in the feedback, add a level. So because you need always to have a lower opacity than 1. Composite these two together and put it here. Okay, now it disappeared because we're on multiply, but if we add, it's gonna look like that. So we cannot see a lot of things. It's not super interesting, but it's always about how the parameters. So Touch Designer is a lot about tweaking parameters, finding the right spots between different settings, and sometimes those little spots are just like 0.1 or 0.01 on the scale. So if you don't find things that are interesting, just try to reduce the scale of movement. Don't do from 1 to 3 or 10, 20, but go lower. Go 0.1, go 0.01, things like that. It always helps. Yeah. So now I'm just putting a higher amplitude on the noise, and you can see it basically adds the layers together. And if I change the level here, it does these kind of things. And the trick I showed last time, if we change the hue, which is the hue adjust here. So by a tiny like one, it's actually black and white. So we need, if you click on noise, there's this little box monochrome, and it makes basically colored noise. So yeah, it changes the hue with the time and the translation. So yeah, really, this is really like the most basic thing you can do. I will show you like a bit more complicated feedback systems after, once I gone through the operators. Okay. What else? You have ramp. Oh yeah, ramp, exactly. So ramp is basically just a gradient. Gradients are a bit complicated in Touch Designer. It's not as easy to automate them. So, I mean, at the level you are, so learning really basic stuff, is the best way to set gradients is just to add small those things, set the color, and be happy with it. If you really want to animate that, I can show you how, but it's a bit more complicated because basically if you wonder what this small arrow here is, and you click on it, you will see a that operator. So this is what I was saying on the first time is that operator have all the data is relative to a certain operator. And in this case, it has the position and the color of each and every point of the gradient. So the way to automate this is to actually work with this this dat and change the data in the table directly. So you have to basically build a table with the positions and the color for every position. So yeah, just so you know, it's a bit more complicated. Yeah, but gradient is really useful. Yeah. Oh, I forgot one in the middle. Lookup. Lookup. If you have a black and white texture and a gradient or any other color texture, it basically takes the grayscale and maps the colors corresponding to the gray, as you can see here. So we have black that is still black. Then we have some like a dark gray, which is orange, light blue, and white, which is basically a super cyan color. Okay. Yeah, text. There's also text. There's a text one. Again, it's different than the one from the chop. I think it's chop. No, it's actually a SOP. This is a texture. It's not a mesh, so you cannot really change the geometry of it because it's not the geometry. It's like really a texture, but it's still good to know. So you have two possibilities to write text into Touch Designer. But if you use a SOP, well, then you need to render the whole thing because it's a 3D object. If you use a top, you don't need to render it because it's already basically rendered. Okay, next, yeah, transform. I guess this is self-explanatory again. Scale, rotate, these kind of things. You know, yeah, classic. And I think this is basically it for the really like the major operators we use. As I said last time, you will see some are like in dark purple. They're supposed to be the ones that people use the most. I don't necessarily use all of those, but yeah, it can be. It's good to know which one can be used or are used the most. You will see also things like add, multiply, over, under, and you will wonder why they exist because they're basically the same as the composite. I'm not exactly sure why they exist. If I want to use something like an add node, I'm just going to use a composite in an add operation. Yeah. And I think this is more or less the thing. Okay. How about saving? Okay. So there's like a lot of tricks also going with if you want to pixelate an image. I'm just going to go through like a couple of tricks I'm using and how to use them and things like that. So if you have any questions or any things you want to learn or know, just ask me in the meantime. So if you see on the left, you have also image filters and you have pixelate, which is basically the same. But it's just nice to know that you can actually pixelate without having to use this filter. So if you want to, let's say, you have this noise and you want to pixelate it, Well, you go to common and you change the resolution. So we go from 256 to 8 by 8, let's say. Up, and you see, oh, it's pixelated, but it's not looking very nice. Why is that? Well, because you have something that is called the smoothness. So everything that passes through texture operator is they add a layer of smoothness to ensure that it's looking nice when you're playing around with textures. But we don't want that. So you go from interpolate pixels to nearest pixel, and viewer smoothness nearest pixel, and from those two. So you can see we've gone from something that is smooth, could be interesting depending on the case, to something that is really pixelated. Now the issue is we have a pixelated image, and we have something that, let's say, our cropped banana. Where is it? Okay. Come on. And you want to add those two. So you use a composite. Up, down. Again, we have the same issue. So still same thing, interpolate pixels and nearest pixel. Now we have a pixel, banana pixel. But it's not what you want to do. You want to like add the pixels on top of the banana, and you want the banana to be stay the same. So what happens is you change the resolution. So basically, the lowest the image that is the highest resolution is going to go to the lowest resolution. So basically, you need to change. You need to insert an operator and change the resolution. So you go into the common. You can use high quality resize common and a custom resolution. So ideally, you take it the same as the banana. So it's 720 by 720. Always nearest pixel. Nearest pixel. Why doesn't it work? Oh yeah, no high quality resize because else it smooths it. Okay, and you can see how now we have a noise, pixelated noise on top of the banana. Yeah, so it's just a really simple trick. It's nice to know that you can pixelate like this really easily. What else? Okay. Yeah, I might go just on the feedback systems or feedback loops, because this is like really my favorite thing to play with in touch design. I've discovered like a lot of interesting things. I'm gonna make it a bit simpler because with noise it's not so easy to see. So I'm just gonna build a new network with the feedback in, and show you what we can do. So banana into the feedback level. Put the opacity to 0.9, composites, add those two together, these ones together, and now the bananas are being stacked together on top of each other. So now we have a kind of really light banana. But why is it so obsessed with feedback systems? I will show you. So if we use something that is transform, if we change a tiny little bit the parameters of transform, let's say translate, rotate, or scale, it's gonna add the transformation to each frame. So you're gonna have like interesting effects. Let's see how does that translate. So if you go 0.1, you can see you have this kind of halo appearing. And it's basically the banana growing at each frame. It's not super clear with this, but if you go 1 by 1, yeah. And obviously it's the same if you use rotate. So if you rotate by by 1 degree, it's going to start rotating like this. If you add a bit more rotation, and you can see there's already movement if I change the rotation. So you could basically animate the rotation and have some effects like this. But the easiest way, instead of rotating the transform, is to rotate the texture in itself. So how do we rotate this? And we need a transform in between. So how do you add an operator if you're already stuck like that? You go onto those two bars, right click, and we want to transform and see it's integrated between all the other operators from the left to the right and from the left. So now we want to basically animate this banana, and we can just go. I'm going to use like a little bit of Python because it's simpler instead of always using a timeline or something like that. Don't worry, you get the patch so you can look exactly what I'm using. So Touch Designer is basically built using itself. So the whole software has been built with pieces of itself. It's kind of how do you say? It's like Inception, you know. It's built upon pieces of itself. I'm repeating myself 3 times now. And you can basically access a lot of the operators via certain like Python codes, addresses, let's say. So right now, what I want to do is have the timeline inside. I want it to rotate via the timeline by using the timeline. So I go me, which is me. So the software, time, I think, and it's frames. No, timeline. No, I forgot what it was. Hang on, I need to check this up quickly. Yeah, it should be me time. Ah, yeah. Yes, it is. So you can see here, I'm basically referencing the timeline, but in seconds. You can do the same if you want to use frames. So instead of seconds, it's me time dot frame frames. Yeah. And you can see this is rotating. If we add this a bit more, you basically have this effect. And if we add the color, so the hue I was saying before, if we add a tiny bit of offset, it does this. So basically, it changes the color of every banana in time. Or the color of every frame of the banana by the time. It's not super interesting because it's just a static image, right? So I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to replace the banana by something that is a bit more interesting, like a video.
Question: could you do something like me frames +1 or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can. I'm going to show you. You can absolutely have all the mathematical operations in there because it's Python directly, so you can really do anything you want. Yeah. So here I'm using a video. It's not super clear because.
David, I have a question. Why me? Is me the namespace, like, or?
Yeah, exactly. It's the namespace pertaining to the Touch Designer, basically. So it's the me is referencing the software.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So now I removed it. No, yeah, it doesn't matter. So you were saying, yeah, if you want to change it, if you want to change if you want to change this, you can use mathematical operations. So me dot time dot frame is going to give you from 0 to 600, right? So if you want to divide to have this, so if you want to have this from 0 to 1, so it's going to be 1 divided by 600 times times the frame. So it's going to be 1 divided by 600 times the time frame. And this is how you do it, basically. So it's the easier version of using this. But this is also very necessary because you can build more complicated operations. So I usually use this for really simple things. If I just want to animate something with the timeline, or there's another expression that is you can use absolute time, but it's not. It's good if you want to use it for small animations or videos, but I cannot recommend it if you want to use an installation because absolute time is going to run out after a certain while because it has a certain, I think it's 32 bits. So after all the numbers are gone, you're going to have an issue because the installation is going to just go insane or just going to stop basically. So it's ABS time, and then you have the choice between seconds or frames, but obviously it's not looping. So absolute time is the time since the patch started. So you can see it's in seconds, so it's 2,600 700 seconds, which is useful to animate things like a noise. Exactly. So ABS time dot seconds. And here you can, you animate your noise really simply. And if you want to divide that by 10, recommendation, it's usually more efficient in terms of computation to use multiplication instead of division. So that's a nice tip. So instead of dividing by 10, you multiply by 0.1. Yeah, and this works better. This works. Yeah. So I plug the video inside this feedback system, and you can see it's basically moving. It's moving a bit too fast. Yeah, I really seem to have the bad video for that. Okay. So this is like the basic feedback system. I can show you something else. So I was talking about the displacement one, and you can use that in a feedback system, which makes it like a recursive displacement. Displace. Which approaches us to those liquid simulation I was talking before. So this is going to be a bad texture for that. So I'm just going to use a noise. See, noises are everywhere. Up, animated as I showed you just before. So let's say we use the absolute time, but remember, it's really only if you don't use it in installation. And we use another displacement, another noise. And then we have a nice effect like this. Is it visible?
Yes.
Nice. So I'm just going to scale it a bit because It's a bit too fast also. I'm just gonna put a bit more resolution so we can actually see something nice that is not pixelated. Okay. Also, one thing that is really that is also good to learn from the beginning is, you see, I just changed like the resolution 2 times, but this is kind of stupid. It's like in programming, you don't want to repeat yourself as less as possible. So in touch design it's the same. You usually use like something that holds a variable and that you can then use on all of those things you want to change at the same time. So in my case, I use like a constant, so a constant chop. I call this res for resolution, and then I link up all the texture that I changed, where I change the resolution. So in this case, these two, this one, and this one. So now, if I want to change it to 256, well, it changes both. And if I want to 1080, well, it changes both again. So this is also really good to learn as a practice, because if you have for small patches, it gets, you have kind of overview what is happening and everything. But if you start out to having like massive patches where there's like nodes around and running and everything, and you put a resolution there and then you forgot where it was, and then you need to start track down which resolution is different from the others, and you're like, oh damn, I wish I wouldn't have done that. Constant, use as variables and reference that in whatever parameter you want. You're gonna thank me later. It's a really time saver. Yeah. So we can see here we have some kind of recursive displacement. But as I was saying, it's always you need to fiddle a lot with these things. Also with noises, it's always good to change like the pixel format. So all the textures in general in Touch Designer, they use a 8-bit pixel format. But so it means you have like a certain amount of data inside this texture. But if you use like a 32-bit float, you're gonna have more details, more information. It's gonna be more interesting. And now you just need to fiddle with this thing and until you're happy with it. Which I'm not going to do on screen because it's going to take forever. But you get the idea. Where's the space weight? Ah.
So is there a way to like combine those, like you showed before with the constant? You expose the parameter there. So let's say if you would like to have also like a drop-down, like a, for example, here you have like the constant RGB units. If you would like to expose that, and have those like in the same place where you control the different variables. How would you do that in?
So you're talking about the UI or just a simple like control system? So you mean this?
Sorry, I have some kind of audio issue.
So you mean with the constant, or I'm not sure I get your question.
Well, some kind of like a UI. I mean, in Houdini, you can have like your own, like a custom kind of window where you can expose the parameters. So you can have like the variables there which you can change, or numbers, or like drop down checkboxes, all kind of things. And you can control the different stuff from there.
Correct. So Touch Designer has a whole UI system integrated and built into it. So it's a bit more complicated because you need to like do it properly to build everything up. But the most simple control system is like this constant with the variable. And linking them up together. If you want to use something like a dropdown, you can use you see the UI thing, the UI in the palette. You have like button checkbox, etc. Dropdown button, dropdown menu. So if I pull one dropdown menu, you have it like this. But you still need to link everything up piece by piece. And then you can have also a separate window which shows only your parameters, which is very useful for like installations and things like that. But for things like that are a bit more, let's say, simple, it's a bit of a hassle to put everything together to build a menu. I'm not saying it's not doable, but you're gonna lose a lot of time just building a menu. You could lose like one day building a simple like a UI, and then second day work on your actual piece. I'm more of I want it done, and I want it done like now. I don't really care about the UI, but I have obviously used it in like more complicated case of installation and things like that. So if you want to use the drop-down menu, you need a table. You have to link everything up. It's a bit more complex, let's say. Yeah.
All right.
So, so simple as so the answer to that, UI is obviously possible, a bit complicated. But if you're interested, if you have a big installation, things like that, you want to look up into it. But that's a really massive topic in itself, and you can take a bit of time. Yeah. Okay. So I was saying displacement. Yeah, this doesn't look fantastic, but yeah, you just need to play around with it. It's a bit too complex right now. It's a bit too fast. Then you can add, what can you do? Yeah, blur is always a good way. It's a good, nice one. Adding blur in the feedback system adds smooths a bit everything out. But this is still not looking good. Yeah. What else? I can show you how to do like a RGB offset. What happened here? So you can see actually all of those things are red now, and that's because we reference something that doesn't exist anymore. So in this case, I think I deleted the timeline number 1, and you can see it's not existing anymore. So I have timeline without a 1, and you can repair that by just removing. Okay. Yeah, that's basically it for that. What could I show you? Should I show you one of my patches to show you how I work? Maybe that could be interesting.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, I can show you the the one that I did for the 200K of Hicket Nunk. And I go a bit through it. Okay, so it's a loop. I'm just going to run it not as a loop. So here you can see actually.
Went down. At least for me.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, yeah, because obviously I removed it. Okay, here we go. Thanks. So yeah, you can see the piece that I did actually for the 200K and the subsequent pieces. And this is basically the patch. So it's not that complicated, but yeah. So this is what I was saying. Oh yeah, here I have a really simple UI element that basically controls. This is a slider connected to a table, and in this table, I was looking for seeds of the noise that I would use that are interesting, and I basically store them into this table. So if I change the slider, I can slide between different values that I have stored into this table, basically. So it's a good way to keep like presets and things like that. I can even give you this patch if you're interested. And then I have my seed for the noise that is being fed into the noise. So you can see here 2000 seeds. And I have this thing that I was saying before is how to loop noise. So it's a small, it's actually, this is it's called a base. And in this base, I have certain operators that are built and that I use constantly in my work. So you can basically build certain operators, save them as a tox file, and put them into your palette. So you can have access to recurrent things you use all the time, which is really cool. I do some math operation here, just some scaling, as I showed you before. And here also the global variable that I use for the resolution. And here we see the noise is we cannot see anything from the noise because it's set too high. So I needed to use like a threshold and another noise. So you have the coordinates of the first noise going into the second noise and changing them. So it does this kind of really smooth effect. And then I use the simple RGB offset, which means that you just change the position of each color layer inside, and you move it like by a bit, like on the x-axis or on the y-axis, which does this kind of effect, and you compose everything together. And this RGB offset has another noise on it, which basically changes the position of the RGB layers in the time. So it's not always fixed, but it changes by time. And then you have the colors that are like adding upon each other and doing this like purple, green, blue, yellow kind of grades, colors basically. Then I use another thing. So basically you have everything that is composited into one. So you see you have like this really nice, it's already looking nice, but it's not finished yet. So I added something else that is called, or like a concept that is it's a 3D texture. So basically a 3D texture is a texture that is in XYZ, so it's in 3D space. So you have the first frame of the text of the 3D texture is is the it's the earliest frame, and the last frame of the 3D texture is the latest frame, and it updates by moving into this. So you have like a kind of you store those images inside the 3D texture, and then you can access it and do some various things on it. So I'm currently storing 60 different frames of this timeline in this 3D texture, and then I use something that's called a time machine. And basically, a time machine is a way to use the frames inside this 3D texture and change the frames the frame that is being used by a gradient. So it's a bit complicated to understand with the noise, but I'm going to show you with the ramp, so it's maybe a bit more easier. So you can see it's a black and white texture, but if I replace this with a gradient, you can see it's moving. The colors are moving from left to right, and it's basically changing the way it's changing the way those layers are being used. So if it's if it's black on the ramp, it's going to be used as latest, and if it's going to be used, if you use the white one, it's going to use the earliest, and so it mixes those layers together and does a really nice effect. It's a really cool trick to be using in Touch Designer. It's not super complicated. It's a bit complicated to understand in this case, but I can recommend to you to try it out. And then we have a simple feedback system with a level, a blur to make everything a bit more blurry. So when you add a blur in a feedback system or whatever, and you add it back to the original image, it adds basically a glow to the image. And then I use some like so how do you say? It's something used for colorizing pictures. So it's like if you've done like a bit of video editing, it changes the base contrast, and you can use either higher contrast, lower contrast, false colors. So false color, low contrast. I think it's a base contrast, or was it high contrast? Yeah. And then you have movie file out, which basically allows to record it, and an out node, which allows me to see this in another window. So if you want to split, your Touch Designer into 2 windows, 4 windows, or things like that, you just go on the upper right pane options, and you can go split left, split bottom, and you see it's going to duplicate. And then if you go on the small arrow on the pane type, so on the upper left, you have pane type. You have different types of operators. So you have a network editor, which is basically what we're working on. We have the panel, which is basically what is coming out of this out one. Geometry viewer, so it's good if you have like a piece of geometry and you want to keep this into the view. A top viewer, which is good if you want to view a top. Chop viewer is the same if you want to view a certain particular chop. You have an animation editor because you have also animation in Touch Designer, but I personally have never tried that out, so I cannot really tell a lot about this. Parameters and textport and that. Yeah. So in this case, I use the panel, and I can work on the patch on one side and see directly what's happening. Yeah. So this is basically how you build a nice animation that is looping. It's not necessarily complicated, but you need to trial and error, try this to build things up, and yeah, just do break things, learn things. As by breaking that you're learning basically. Yeah. Any questions on this one?
Is there any difference on the movie file out and if you go to file and there's some kind of like export video option there that I've used? Between those.
So yeah, movie file out. Well, you can export like the major video stuff and things like that. My process to export videos in Touch Designer is usually I don't use the included movie export because I've had a lot of times where it doesn't look that good, and I'd rather have control over how it looks. So what I do is use a image sequence, export that image sequence, and then use something like FFmpeg to stitch it together. And then you have the best results ever because yeah, the thing is the Touch Designer uses H.264, but the hardware encoding, and it's not very good. So if you want to have really, I mean, you can use you can use HAP if you want to use you want to export a really high quality video, but that file is going to be gigabytes, yeah, in terms of size. H.264 NVIDIA GPU is good for like previews and things like that, but I wouldn't recommend it if you want to sell an NFT or something like that. It's not ideal. Yeah. Was that your question or?
Yeah, that helped a lot. I was just wondering, like, if there's some other if you go to the top bar menu, the file, and then there's the
here, export movie. Yeah. Oh, I haven't actually. Yeah, I never used this actually.
Like if the same settings are there, or is it different?
I guess it's just another way to export it. It's basically just a simpler way, I guess. Yeah. I think it's the same basically. So
yeah,
that's it.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. So one of our patches. Yeah, this is more or less what I had for today. If you have any questions, additional questions, or topics you want to work on next week. I know it's a bit like short and not super. There's not so much infos, but it's a beginner's course, so I keep it simple. So no topics for next week. Just choose something. Okay. Oh yeah, one thing also, if you're recording video, coming back to the video, you have this small real-time button here up here. If it's not that relevant in this case because it's always going to be 60 frames per second because the patch is really light. But if you have a patch that is like going less than 60 frames per second in general, you might wanna you're gonna have to click on real time to actually be able to render all the frames of the patch. So if you don't click real time, it's gonna use the if it's not the real time button is not red, it's gonna use the real time mode to render your frames. And if it's not 60 frames per second, you're gonna miss frames, and then you're gonna wonder why it doesn't look good. So always use real time mode if you're rendering stuff. Even if it's at 60 frames per second, it's always better. That's like my last tip for today. Yeah. All right.
Thank you. Maybe I have some ideas for the next week. If it is okay, maybe we can look at 3D objects. And I was wondering, can we use some sound files and I don't know, like connect sounds frequency, the music's frequency to the animation, something like that.
Sure. That's not a problem. Yeah, sound is always a big topic also with Touch Designer. I used to do a bit more sound stuff before, but I'm not really a sound guy, so I need to work with people who actually do know this stuff. But yeah, we can definitely do that. So I've done like audio reactive pieces, and it's really cool to do. So I can definitely get some patch working and some tricks rolling, and you can see how it works.
Yeah, it's really great. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, because also audio has some certain quirks that I need to explain, because else you're gonna not understand why your patch is like super slow and things like that. It's a bit tricky sometimes. It's all about like the number, because audio works in 44. I mean, the sampling frequency is really high, so you have a lot of more samples, and you need to reduce that amount of samples to be able to work with it in Touch Designer. Yeah. But that's really simple, so it's I can show you that next week. Yeah. Any other questions, comments, desires?
Yeah, looking at the 3D stuff would be interesting. Yeah, next time.
Show something like a displacement with audio input or something like that.
Yeah, that's
Sure.
great.
Okay. So 3D object moving all around the space and music playing around. Okay, that works for me. That's
Maybe
cool.
adding lights and stuff like that. Yeah.
Cool.
Yep, I can prepare that. Okay. All right. So any last question, or that would be it for today, I guess? Okay, we're good to go.
No question.
Yeah,
Thank
sure.
you.
One question? No question. Oh, sorry. Okay. Then, well, see you next time. See you next week, I think. And I'll prepare something nice for you to look at or to work on. If you want to work on something also on your side and you want me to review it and give you some tips, that is also very welcome. Or if you want to do that and send me out of this course, please feel free. I can always give you tips and things that are not necessarily clear from the beginning. Yeah, that would be it for me. So have a great day, and
Bye.
see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.